Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into philosopher Zhu Feng's mind-bending framework that blends determinism and free will together through a very specific, vivid metaphor. Look, if you've ever felt like you're just going through the motions, or on the flip side, like you're fighting this massive uphill battle against your own destiny, this breakdown is going to offer a completely unique perspective on exactly why that happens.
So let's dive straight into the massive existential question that the text poses right off the bat. If the trajectory of our lives is already totally set in stone, do we actually have free will? I mean, it's the ultimate paradox, right? Thinkers have been tearing their hair out over this for centuries. But rather than just throwing his hands up, the author of our source text, Zhu Feng, argues that yes, free will absolutely exists. The real kicker, as we're about to see, is how that free will interacts with the path that's already been laid out for us.
All right, let's start with part 1, the universal script.
To really grasp this, we have to zoom way out to a cosmic scale. The text draws this direct, fascinating parallel between the fixed, predetermined orbits of billions of stars and the inescapable trajectory of human life. Think about it. A star doesn't just spontaneously decide to pull a U-turn and reverse its orbit around the galaxy, right? Well, human beings are bound to a definitive track in the exact same way. Our most basic biological milestones, like birth, growth, aging, and death, they're part of a predetermined course that we literally cannot opt out of. We are on a track for sure, whether we like it or not.
But it goes a lot deeper than just basic biology. According to the author, there are exactly 18 specific properties within life's track that are entirely locked in. You cannot manage them yourself. Basically, every major detail on your life's track is predetermined. We're talking about things like your name, your core temperament, your specific words and actions, exactly who you're going to encounter, the suffering you'll face, the exact diseases you'll succumb to at each stage of life, and, well, exactly when the end will come. It is a completely locked-in trajectory.
Which brings us to part 2, the free will conflict.
Okay, so if everything from our health to who we bump into on the street is scripted, we arrive at the core friction of this text: life as a massive theatrical play. The source describes the universe as a single holographic entity that functions like one gigantic production, meaning everything happening in human society right now, it's just a single episode of this cosmic play. Every single person on Earth is simply an actor on a stage, performing in strict accordance with a completely predetermined plot. You aren't writing the story, you're just playing your prescribed role in the scenario. And here is where it gets kind of funny but also deeply frustrating. The text points out that free will undoubtedly exists, but it's precisely this free will that causes our pain when it clashes with our assigned role. Like, the play might cast you as a mouse, but your free will desperately wants to play an elephant. Or maybe you're assigned a role to grow vegetables, but man, you want to build a spaceship. It's this profound, jarring mismatch between what's written for you and what you actually desire for yourself.
So the crucial point here, and this is huge, is that human suffering doesn't actually come from the events themselves. It comes from fighting the script you've been handed. Whenever your free will contradicts the arrangement of the plot, the text argues that things like hesitation, agony, anxiety, fear, and sadness just completely take over your life. But conversely, if your free will actually agrees with the plot's arrangement, you feel peace, joy, and a profound sense of freedom.
Moving right along to part 3, the value of struggle. Now, this naturally leads to a highly logical question. You're probably thinking, wait a minute, if it's all just an illusion of improv, why do we bother trying so hard to achieve our dreams? If my role is already 100% written, why am I out here sweating, striving, and struggling every single day to get ahead? Well, Zhu Feng answers this by arguing that even your drive to struggle is programmed into your character's non-material structure. Think of it like your soul's source code. The text literally calls the idea of our independent, completely self-driven efforts barely more than nonsense. When the program is determined, the role is determined. You see, you aren't actually choosing to struggle. Your predetermined temperament is simply prompting you to act out the struggles that were written for your character. You have to make efforts because a whole series of surrounding events and your own internal state basically force you to. It's not that you independently woke up today and decided to grind. It's that the ramifications of the plot around you prompt you to act it out. Your ambition? It's simply a line of code in your character's software. Let's look at how this unfolds in part 4, destiny versus variables. Here's where things get really fascinating. The philosophy separates the entire universe into 2 buckets: destiny, which is the rigid plot, and variables, which depend entirely on the performance of the actor. So the plot of the play is destiny. It absolutely cannot be changed. However, who plays the characters and exactly how well they play them, those are the variables. In this universe, this is where your individual performance actually matters. And this leads to a highly controversial claim in the text. According to this philosophy, whether a person was historically a widely revered saint or a villain like Adolf Hitler, their spiritual reward or punishment is based exclusively on how well they played their assigned plot. The text explicitly uses this extreme example to prove a very specific point. Going to heaven or hell has absolutely nothing to do with the morality of the role you were handed. Whether you were cast as an emperor or a thief, your spiritual reward is strictly graded on whether you played that specific part smoothly without internal resistance. Basically, the text posits that playing your role well eventually allows you to play future roles closer to your free will. If you play your current part perfectly, in accordance with the established plot, you earn the right to play roles in heaven that align much more closely with what you actually want. But if your self-consciousness is too strong and you stubbornly refuse to play your assigned role, you're doomed to reside in hell, taking on roles that deviate entirely from your desires. It's a vicious cycle. So, let's wrap this all up in Part 5, Mastering Your Role. How can you apply this framework to your own life? I mean, how do you know if you're actually navigating your script successfully? The author provides a very specific validation test for this. Because remember, it doesn't matter if your role involves immense pain or endless pleasure. The metric for success here is entirely internal. Regardless of whether your role involves great tragedy or great triumph, you are playing it perfectly if you can maintain 4 internal states. Are you calm? Are you happy and joyful? Are you free from hesitation, worry, and anxiety? And finally, do you feel gratitude? If you can check these 4 boxes while riding the whirlwind of your life, you've successfully played your role. If you are frantic, angry, and resentful, well, you've failed the role. Drawing heavily on the teachings of Buddha, the text argues that ego, or what it calls self-persistence, forces you out of character and practically guarantees misery. If you do everything according to your own wishes, if you always insist on your own views and firmly believe you're always in the right, you are failing your script. A strong, free consciousness prevents you from uniting with the Tao, which is the natural flow and order of the universe. You simply cannot be rewarded if you're constantly fighting the director. So, to attain the spiritual state of an immortal, the ultimate takeaway is you've got to drop the ego and gracefully accept the stage you've been placed on. You have to take things exactly as they are. Associate with people by following the relationships predestined for you, act in accordance with your inherent nature, and just take advantage of the opportunities placed right in front of you. This, the author states, is the absolute best way to play your role. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought to test against your own daily struggles. The next time you feel that deep, agonizing friction in your life, ask yourself, are you upset because of what's actually happening, or are you upset because you're a mouse desperately trying to build a spaceship? Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.